things that are happening at the state and local levels. And our state and local offices will be working with stakeholder organizations to conduct CFAP2 webinars for producers. Also, as the Beginning Farmer Coordinator for USDA, I will also flag that we have Beginning Farmer Program Coordinators in every state, and their job is to reach beginning farmers and ranchers. And they are also on farmers.gov/new farmers as a whole listing. So that's another USDA partner for you all. They're not all necessarily FSA employees, but we've got a lot of folks at the ready who want to partner with you and help get the word out to producers. And while they may be kind of an all-hands outreach person and not necessarily subject matter experts, they'll be able to get those subject matter experts and pull in the right folks and help identify staff to get information and to participate in events that you might be organizing or provide content for information that you're pushing out there. So we really want to work with you all at the local level, on the ground, where farmers and ranchers are, to make sure that we are getting the word out, helping folks with their applications, getting those applications in, and getting producers the support that they need. So that is all that I have in terms of overview and update, and we did want to reserve the bulk of this time for Q&A, so now we're going to transition to that. And we've got Shauna Huggins online, as well as Jody from Farm Programs, and so we've got technical subject matter experts and some folks from the outreach team here. So hopefully we'll be able to cover everything, but like I said, if we can't, then we will get back with folks and we will update the FAQ after this. All right, so here is a question for Farm Programs. Is there any specific guidance available for cooperatives to assist in calculating AGI farming income for CFAP2 eligibility?
So this is Tana, and I'll just respond that whenever it comes to AGI, we always, from a Farm Service Agency perspective, encourage the program applicants to work with a tax professional. So if the cooperatives have tax professionals available that could provide that assistance, that would be a very good resource. Otherwise, we would encourage the participants themselves to reach out to a tax professional.
Thanks, Tana. And here is a good question about clarification about CFAP1 and CFAP2. And the question is, if you've received CFAP1 or previous CFAP2 payments, will you be automatically enrolled in the new CFAP2? So I will kick this to Farm Programs, but just want to kind of clarify, there are some automatic payments that are happening for folks who applied for CFAP2, and those are for those flat rate price trigger crops, as well as cattle. And then, so that is what's happening with CFAP1. They don't need to apply again. It's only for those applicants. And then I will let the Farm Program team speak to any top-up payments or what might be coming in terms of CFAP2 applications.
So just to be clear, for CFAP1, there are what we are calling the top-up payments associated with cattle inventory, and this was required as part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. So those top-up payments require no action from the prior applicant, and that is all that can happen right now associated with CFAP1. CFAP1 is closed. This payment is being made. As far as CFAP2, again, there is the top-up payment, as Sarah just mentioned, that is associated with our price trigger and flat rate commodities. Again, this was included in the Consolidated Appropriations Act that specified the amount of that top-up. We're calling it a top-up. That is what we're calling it because we're increasing the payment over what was previously there. No action is required by the program applicant for that particular payment to be issued. However, as Sarah also said during the presentation, CFAP2 is now open for business again. So therefore, if someone missed the application deadline that really occurred back December 11th, or has realized that, oh, I forgot to include a specific sales of a specific commodity, for example, that information can be brought in at this point in time and the application updated, revised, or a new application completed. So as far as the question that was asked, if you received a CFAP-1 or a previous CFAP-2 payment, will you automatically be enrolled? If you previously received a payment for one of these commodities that we have the guidance in the consolidated appropriations that says we need to make an additional payment, no action is required. But if you have something new or some change, then for CFAP-2, then you will need to file either an updated or a new application.
Thanks. And if a producer applied for CFAP-1 and not CFAP-2 and missed the window, this is a good opportunity for them to go back and do that. All right, our next question is there any option for assistance through CFAP for producers who are new in 2020 and don't have sales information from 2019? What are we doing for those producers?
So that's a very good question, as these other ones have been as well. There was provision recognizing that there could be producers who started farming either late in 2019 and did not have any sales revenue during calendar year 2019 because that all came in 2020, or actually began farming in 2020. In those cases, there are special provisions in the regulation that allow the producer to make application for CFAP and use 2020 income in lieu of 2019. I say income, it's actually revenue, in 2020 as opposed to 2019. So that is, if you read the instructions associated with the application form, that is included in the instructions, and your local Farm Service Agency office could actually help you with that as well.
Thank you. And I see there's been a request for us to share that call center number there, so I'm just going to tab back to that and leave the deck there so folks can see that. All right, so we've got some questions about the cooperative agreement. Yes, there will be more information forthcoming on that specifically, and I would encourage folks to go to grants.gov and look at that opportunity there and download the package. So, and some of we will be putting some more information out and likely a webinar on that as well. But there's a question about how are we kind of handling those applications that are focusing on CFAP based on the CFAP deadline. Basically, any applications focused on CFAP are going to be expedited. They are priority. We're going to work as fast as we can on those CFAP applications as possible, because we understand that there's a program deadline and then the timeline of a cooperative agreement. And so we're just going to navigate that as best as we can and work as quickly as possible. Let's see, more questions here. I'm just pulling up the queue. Here is a question about future top-up payments, and I don't know if we can answer this yet, but will specialty crops be included in top-up payments is the question.
So I will respond this way, that as part of the Pandemic Assistance to Producers press release that went out, one of the things that was stated in that, as well as has been available on farmers.gov, is that the administration is reviewing all aspects of CFAP and the other components that are part of the Pandemic Assistance to Producers. Included in that is the payments that have gone to the sales-based commodities, which is where generally the specialty crops are included. And so that is part of an ongoing evaluation. And while, as Sarah said, we cannot say that yes or no, that is being evaluated. And if it is determined that additional changes need to be made, then potentially, yes, there could be. But again, it's part of this ongoing evaluation by the administration.
Thank you. I'm looking to see if we've got somebody. There are a couple. I think we have answered all of the questions that are here that are kind of for the general group. Some of these we have identified some questions that we're going to respond to with more information and follow-up email and communications. So if folks have more questions, please, general questions about CFAP 2, please go ahead and put those in.
When I walk across here, they're calling in. I heard her giving the number. I was going to tell her about it. It's gone now. That's the end of that.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions populate in my box here, so I don't want to keep folks longer than we need to, but just want to thank everyone for joining today. We really appreciate the work that you do to help get the word out about USDA programs to farmers and ranchers, and know that you all will be working hard on this, especially with CFAP 2, and that the pandemic has been really difficult for a lot of producers. And just, again, thank you for your collaboration and your partnership. Please follow up if you have additional questions. We'll be following up with some folks who have put in questions here that require more individual and tailored answers, and there'll be more information about resources for organizations interested in applying for those cooperative agreements on FSA's outreach site. But in the interim, please go online and download that package and check that out, and also explore farmers.gov/CFAP, because there's a lot of information and resources there, really great FAQ, and a lot of good information for producers and stakeholders. Thank you all for your time today and for joining us, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon and connecting.
They'll be able to go into the chat box and just pull up their.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our CFAP 2 stakeholder webinar. This is Sarah Campbell. I'm USDA's Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coordinator for the department, and I will be leading the webinar today with my colleagues from FSA's Outreach Division, as well as Farm Programs.
Yeah, see again, is it, which one you like?
So today we are going to be talking about CFAP 2 and all of the information and updates that we have for you all as stakeholders, as well as the information that we need help getting the word out about with regards to our programs. Just a note, if you don't hear the audio through your device, there is an audience phone bridge that you can use, and if you have any questions, submit them through the chat box. We are going to answer questions as applicable, and then we have reserved some time for Q&A, where we'll be going through the questions that folks come in either about CFAP or any of the resources that we have mentioned during this call. Just as a note, this meeting is being recorded and will be available online. The questions that we get, if we don't get through all of them during the call, we will use them to update our FAQs online, and we can follow up with folks afterwards as well. So we will make sure that we get your questions answered, and we're going to try to get through as many of them as possible today. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're going to talk a little bit about the American Rescue Plan, the Pandemic Assistance Program, so what's new and what's new with CFAP 2, as well as a new cooperative agreement announcement and what is coming up next. And we've got some remarks for the administrator, though I'm not sure that he's been able to join yet. He's been caught up in another meeting. Administrator, have you been able to join us? All right, that's okay. We'll keep going. So I will just carry on and we'll hopefully get to hear from him, but if not, please know that the administrator really appreciates all of our stakeholders and your support as we work to get pandemic assistance out to all of our farmers and ranchers. So USDA is establishing new programs and efforts to bring financial assistance to farmers, ranchers, and producers who felt the impact of the COVID-19 market disruptions. We are improving and retargeting existing programs and creating new efforts to reach a broader set of producers and bringing a new perspective and outlook to how USDA delivers assistance to producers in need. The Biden-Harris administration is committed to helping as many producers as possible as equitably as possible. So the new initiative, USDA Pandemic Assistance for Producers, will reach a broader set of producers than in previous COVID-19 aid programs. USDA is dedicating at least $6 billion towards these new programs. The USDA Pandemic Assistance for Producers was needed after a review of previous COVID-19 assistance programs. Targeting farmers identified a number of gaps and disparities in how assistance was distributed, as well as inadequate outreach to underserved producers and smaller and medium operations. The department will also develop rules for new programs that will put greater emphasis on outreach to small and socially disadvantaged producers, specialty crop and organic producers, timber harvesters, as well as support for the food supply chain and producers of renewable energy, among others. Where rulemaking is required, we will commence rulemaking by the end of spring. Existing programs, like the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, CFAP, will fall within the new initiatives, and where statutory authority allows, will be refined and retargeted to better address the needs of producers. Investing $6 billion to expand and help and assist more producers. So we are dedicating at least $6 billion to develop a number of new programs or modify existing proposals using discretionary funding from the Consolidated Appropriations Act and other coronavirus funding that went unspent by the previous administration. Where rulemaking is required, it will commence in late spring. We're also adding $500 million of new funding to existing programs, and we expect to invest approximately $500 million in expedited assistance through several existing programs by April 30th. So the pandemic and the impacts of COVID-19 really exacerbated the impacts of longstanding and historic disadvantages faced by farmers and ranchers who are Black, African American, American Indian or Alaskan Native, Hispanic or Latino, or Asian American and Pacific Islander. So USDA is now reviewing the statute and working to gather feedback to implement the American Rescue Plan. More guidance will be forthcoming for borrowers who had direct or guaranteed farm program loans or farm storage facility loans outstanding on January 1st, 2021. We know that folks are very eager for information and updates on that, and we are working as quickly and efficiently as possible. And as information is available, it will be provided directly to socially disadvantaged borrowers as well as stakeholder groups representing those producers. It'll be posted on farmers.gov and shared through email updates and other vehicles. And producers who have worked with USDA's Farm Service Agency may previously have their ethnicity and race on file. A borrower can call or visit their local service center to verify or update their race and ethnicity designation using the Form 80-2047. So we want to make sure that folks have the most updated and current information on file so that they are contacted and get all of the information that they need about the American Rescue Plan Act and its provisions. So, and guaranteed loan loan lenders who are contacted by a borrower about their race and ethnicity designation should refer the borrower to the local USDA Service Center to verify or update their race designation. A guaranteed borrower can also call or visit a local USDA Service Center to verify or update their race and ethnicity designation using that AB 2047 form. We are excited to announce $2 million in cooperative agreements for stakeholder organizations to assist socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. This announcement went out on Monday at the same time as the reopening of CFAP 2. This funding opportunity will allow nonprofits in our 1890s, 1994s, and HSIs to assist with getting FSA program information out to socially disadvantaged producers. The awards will range from $20,000 to $99,999 for a duration between 6 months and 1 year. We will be expediting applications that focus primarily on CFAP 2. And for other proposals, FSA anticipates announcing or notifying successful and unsuccessful applicants by June 21st. We expect to have the awards in place by September 1st in 2021. You can find all of the details on these agreements at fsa.usda.gov/cooperative agreements, and the full announcement and application package is on grants.gov. We're really looking forward to partnering with organizations and working with you to get the word out about our programs and provide technical support. Many of our stakeholders were instrumental in doing that work in prior rounds of CFAP, so we're looking forward to partnering again with some additional resources to offer. So to the big announcement here also, CFAP 2 was reopened on April 5th, the sign up, and will be open for at least 60 days. CFAP 2 provides financial assistance that gives producers the ability to absorb increased marketing costs associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Eligible commodities include specialty crops, livestock, dairy, row crops, aquaculture, floriculture, and nursery crops. The Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021, enacted December 2020, requires FSA to make certain payments to producers according to a mandated formula. USDA is now expediting these provisions because they are explicitly directed in statute and do not require rulemaking. This includes an increase in the CFAP 1 payment rates for cattle and additional CFAP assistance of $20 per acre for producers of eligible CFAP 2 flat rate or price trigger crops. Both cattle and row crop additional payments will occur automatically, and they do not require new or modified applications. Those have already begun processing, and producers may have even already received those funds since it was automatic and automated. So if folks reach out to you, they don't have to file a second application or do anything. And more information on those additional payment rates can be found on farmers.gov/CFAP. And we estimate that there will be an additional payments of more than $1.1 billion to more than 410,000 producers. So, Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Like I said, many of you are familiar with this program, but if you're not, I'm just going to kind of give a little summary here. So we know that the COVID-19 pandemic impacted operations in a lot of different ways, and CFAP works to address two of the main challenges from coronavirus, price declines and supply chain disruption. The pandemic caused a decline in demand for some commodities and affected the market supply chains. Some producers had challenges in getting products to market before they spoiled. They may have had to dump milk, or maybe they had some other supply chain disruptions. A lot of contracts were canceled due to school and restaurants closings. It was just very devastating for a lot of producers in a number of different ways. So CFAP 2 provides financial assistance that gives producers the ability to absorb increased marketing costs associated with the pandemic. The initial sign-up ended on December 11th. However, we have reopened sign-up for at least 60 days starting April 5th. This program is designed to offset payment losses and the financial impacts of the pandemic The funds do not have to be paid back, nor are there any stipulations on how they must be spent. Most of the producers applying have incurred significant costs to get a product ready for market and then could not sell or experienced a price decline. The payments are not expected to make producers whole or compensate them for all of their losses, but the payment is designed to give producers some financial relief. If a producer has outstanding debts with USDA, they should still apply for the program if they're eligible. Their payments will not be withheld to satisfy USDA debts or Treasury debts, but can be used for those purposes if requested by the applicant. And eligibility documents do have to be filed for payments to be issued. There are a lot of eligible commodities, and the full list can be found on farmers.gov/CFAP, but the program does cover aquaculture, broilers, eggs, pullets, dairy, floriculture and nursery crops, livestock by contract growers, row crops, specialty livestock, tobacco, and wool. And for contract producers, the Consolidated Appropriations Act, enacted in December, requires FSA to make certain payments to swine and poultry contract producers affected by the pandemic. And eligible commodities for contract producers are broilers, pullets, layers, turkeys, hogs, and pigs, and chicken eggs. And for chicken eggs, that includes shell, liquid, dried, and frozen. Eligible producers must have been under a contract to produce an eligible commodity in 2020, and CFAP 2 payments are based on the contract producer's 2020 eligible revenue compared to their 2019 eligible revenue. So there are some ineligible commodities, and the complete list of eligible and ineligible commodities is on farmers.gov/CFAP, but commodities
Hey, Angela.
Have co-facilitators, along with Dr. King, former mayor of Helena, West Helena, practicing attorney in Mississippi and Arkansas. Attorney James Valley will be the co-facilitator with Dr. Calvin King Sr. At this time, we will give it over to Dr. King. Also, I'd just like to note to everyone, there is an agenda. Mike, would you put that agenda up in the chat box? Everyone, there is an agenda for you in the chat box itself. Mr. Tucker is pulling that up. That is the agenda. Please note one change on that agenda. Alvin Peer, the State Outreach Coordinator for Arkansas, had something that came up, and he will be replaced by Clyde Williams, the acting Assistant State Conservationist for program in Arkansas. Again, the agenda is in the chat box for everyone. And that being said, next person you'll hear will be Dr. Calvin King, President and CEO of Arkansas Atlantic Community Development Corporation, Fargo, Arkansas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you all are getting the
we're out in a rural area, and the fact that you all are not here on the site, I still want to welcome you to Arkansas Land Community Development Corporation, Fargo, Arkansas, the site of the Fargo Agricultural School Museum, founded in 1919 by Dr. Floyd Graham. I'm hoping Attorney Valley, are you on?
See him up in the corner. There you go. You're gonna have to unmute James. He's in the corner.
Attorney Valley, I think you might be on mute there. There you are.
The message is we cannot hear.
We cannot hear. You're gonna have to unmute us. Try to mute. It looks like everybody's on mute. Unmute.
I can't unmute. I can ask them to unmute.
Ask them to unmute.
Attorney Valley, I think you're still on mute.
Everybody can nobody hear. Everybody's asking.
Somebody said I can hear. Somebody wrote I can hear.
Okay, I can hear.
Ask them, can anybody hear?
Ask them to can everybody hear us.
Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, if there's.
I can hear.
I can hear.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the agenda. Attorney Valley has not come on yet, but let me say this: it's really a pleasure for me to have this opportunity to be the co-facilitator with Attorney Valley. You know, he has a serious commitment, one, to community economic development, while he does serve as a practicing attorney and the former mayor of Helena, West Helena. He also has a radio talk show, and we've been fortunate enough to be a guest on his talk show for a number of times. And I would say also in appreciation to the radio station itself, KJIW 90.5, they're proven to be a partner in community-based efforts, and particularly with our efforts and what we have engaged in over the years. And it's very crucial when it comes down to getting the word out and getting information out. So again, my appreciation to KGIW 94.5, as well as Attorney Valley, they'll be serving as a co-facilitator for me. And I'm going to ask Attorney Valley, if you would, I'm going to let you take it at this point based on the agenda. You do have the agenda, right?
I do. Hold on just a second. Give me just a second.
One additional change to that agenda versus where we had initially, the first person was going to be our first agency, Natural Resource and Conservation Services, NRCS. And it's my understanding that Farm Service Agency will be the first presenters because of a conflict in schedule that they have with Mr. Hoots. So he will be the first one that will be coming in. Sort of basically the way the process works, after each presentation, we're going to have a short question and answer period. And I'm hoping that the questions and notation that will be taken by Attorney Valley, and questions that he will possibly have for the resource presenters and myself as well, certain questions that I may possibly have, if not, to the greatest extent possible, we want to have engagement, and then that may be with one of the co-facilitators, as well as those who are participating in this particular event. So Attorney Valley, are you ready now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went up to get the agenda off my printer. I wanted to have it in my hand, but that didn't work out. But I got it here on my phone, so I'm good to go.
All right, so we're going to now bring Farm Service Agency, Mr. Danny Hoots, and he is the acting state director for FSA. Hopefully everyone will listen very attentively and take notes for any questions that you may have. You may have seen some of the presentation that was taking place as a pre-point to the startup of this particular event. And that's with FSA, particularly on CCAP 2. No, we'll be talking about that and a number of very other areas. Mr. Hoots, are you ready?
I believe so. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we got you.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to, and I'm not real technically advanced, I'm going to attempt to share my screen with the presentation here. So I am, my name is Danny Hoots. I am the acting state director for FSA in Arkansas. I've been working with the agency for a little over 20 years now, and during this transition, I've been honored to serve as the acting state director with FSA. And so take a couple of minutes this morning to show or tell about FSA and some of the programs that we have available. I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully you can see the website here that you can record to find your local USDA office. That's where you would want to start with any new programs or signing up, is to know where your local office is. We do have multiple programs available that start with our ARC PLC, which is a basic payments for crops that have base acres on them. We have a non-insured assistant program for it's basically a FSA or government-backed insurance for crops that don't have crop insurance in the private sector. As mentioned before, we do have a current program going on. It's called the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, or CFAP for short. It was previously, the sign up had ended. It reopened on April the 5th and will be continuing for at least 60 days. There are 3 different categories of payments with this CFAP 2 program. And we have just the price focused commodities, and those include corn, grain sorghum, soybeans, upland cotton, and wheat. Additionally, we have the flat rate crops, and those include crops such as extra long staple cotton, hemp, oats, and peanuts. And then we have sales commodity, which includes fruits and vegetables and aquaculture. These are not, that's not an extensive list of commodities that are included in the CFAP sign up. You can visit farmers.gov/CFAP/commodities for a complete listing. Another program that we will have coming up is part of the American Rescue Plan. The provisions of this act provides up to 120% of outstanding loan balances, USDA Farm Service Agency loan balances as of January 1st, 2021. And basically it's a payment of up to 120% of that loan balance for a direct FSA loan or a guaranteed FSA loan, farm storage facility loan. The 100% is to pay the loan off, and then the 20% is for any additional liabilities that for historically underserved individuals We have a list here on the screen of who meets those requirements. Right now, the only thing that you may want to do or to take care of is make sure that the county office has your correct race or ethnicity designation on file. If you're not for sure, you can contact your local office and request that to be done over the phone or by submitting a form 80-2047. You can go online and get the form, complete it, and send it into your local office, or again by phone to your local office. We do have a website that's designated to providing information on the American Rescue Plan. It's at www.farmers.gov/American Rescue Plan. There's a question and answer section here that is updated ever so often. I believe the last time that it was updated was actually yesterday. But there's general information about the program and the requirements, and there's also the question and answer. We also have a call center that has been open, and the number for the call center is 877-508-8364. And that call center is staffed on weekdays from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time or 7 to 6 Central. As part of our helping people with farming, we do have direct operating loans. And these loans are focused into buying equipment or livestock and or purchasing the inputs for an operation, either feed for your livestock operation, seed, fuel, and other crop inputs for a row crop operation. The maximum loan amount is $400,000. We do, if it's for crop inputs or for feed for your livestock and things of that nature, the general repayment is 1 year. And for loans that are for equipment or breeding livestock, and would be available to go up to 7 years terms. We also have microloans that are available. These are smaller loans, require a lot less paperwork, and they are probably easier to meet. And these are for maybe individuals who don't have a large need because the loan limits are $50,000. These may be starting out some of the popular loans that we make are for vegetables or something like that on a small scale, and before growing that operation. We also have a direct farm ownership loans that if you have the experience to meet all the eligibility requirements, that can be up to $600,000 with a maximum of 40-year repayment. Our guaranteed loan program is whenever you're able to get a loan from a bank. However, the bank maybe need a little additional security or financial backing to go ahead and make that loan. Then we have a guaranteed loan program where we will back that loan for them or for you. And if there happened to be a loss, we could pay up to 95% of that loss. So it usually makes banks a little bit more willing to loan where other times they would be unable to. We also have youth loans for individuals who are 10 to 20 years old and they participate in some type of agricultural club, something similar to a 4-H or FFA. And they have a ag-related project. We can loan up to $5,000 to help them with that project. We do have money set aside in our loan that are for historically underserved or women producers. as for whenever you request your loans. Also, we have beginning farmer and rancher loans that provide that credit opportunities for people who have less than 10 years of experience. Additionally, whenever there's an emergency designation, we have an emergency loan that is 100% of the loss or up to $500,000. If the requirements of a loss, or you show that you have a loss due to a natural disaster. If you currently have a loan as of January 27th, FSA is not pursuing any kind of foreclosure actions or debt collections for past due. And this does include farm storage facility loans and the direct loan of FSA. Also, we've extended deadlines to respond to servicing when a distressed borrower maybe needs a little more time to respond to the servicing request. Fortunately, in Arkansas, but I don't know about the other states that are surrounding us, we are able to meet with producers face-to-face by appointment only. Conducting business with FSA, we do encourage you again, contact your local service center, set up that appointment, and they can work with you by phone, email, or help with online tool processing. And if a face-to-face meeting is needed, then they can set up that appointment. There are certain questions that they must ask related to the safety of the coronavirus. Again, this is for Arkansas, as each state, there's some requirements on that are reviewed that determine the safety of each office. As far as I know, every office in Arkansas is eligible to receive that, to have those face-to-face meetings. Another great resource to gather information is farmers.gov. As you can see, the two previous programs that we kind of focused on today, the CFAP and the American Recovery Act, both start off as a farmers.gov, and then you can drill down to the particular program you're interested in. I'll briefly touch on county committees elections that are coming up. These are very critical to the operation of FSA, that is having local farmers contribute to the implementation of all of our programs. And so as you begin to get notices going forward in the next couple of months, I do ask that you make nominations and to participate in the voting. If you're interested in getting text messages from FSA, you can sign up for text message alerts, or you can actually sign up for email newsletters from county offices or the state office. We have FSA Farmers Plus, which is a online self portal to where you can sign up and take care of some of your FSA business at home online. You can find information about this at fsa.usda.gov/online-services/farm-plus. And that website's on the screen here. And last, we have ask.usda.gov, to where if you cannot find the information that you're looking for elsewhere, you can go to this website and type in your questions, and there's a knowledge base there that's available 24 hours a day. If you can't find an answer to a specific question, you can actually ask a question, and someone will answer that So again, once again, I've got on here on the screen the USDA Service Center locations and status, because I believe that is very important, where it'd be your first step to gather your local information and what's going on at your local office. All right, so with that, I guess I'm available to take any questions or anything that someone would like to follow up on.
Attorney Valley still on. Attorney Valley, do you have any questions?
Yes. We're getting a little feedback. Mr. Hoots, I certainly appreciate you for joining us and for the presentation that you've made. And I tried to keep up with the slides as you went through them, but I imagine one of the questions would be, will you be providing this slide presentation to Arkansas Land and Farm, where they may share it with some of the people who are here, where they can read it later?
Yes, I mean, I definitely can do that. That's not a problem whatsoever.
Okay. And then on these various programs, is there any particular way that the participants need to participate? Do they just call up the local office or send it an email? Or what would be the place where they would start seeking to get some of this help?
Right. So again, that our couple of slides through there was contacting your local FSA office. So if someone has not participated in any programs before with FSA, you would want to find out where your local FSA office is at. You will contact that office and come in, and basically will need to go ahead and start working towards providing where that your ownership, or if you're leasing land, but basically start providing some basic information on your farming operation. And let us find that on our maps and start delineating that out and establish a farm number if need be. Start working with the providing the documents that we would need to know how you're going to farm, what name, and eligibility participations. And so all those forms are kind of locally, so it's hard to sometimes speak generally, but we're going to need a 902 form, which is a operating plan. We would need to know about the ownership of the land. We would also need to where individuals will certify if they exceed more than $900,000 a year, as that's what's been established, that if a person's average income is over $900,000 a year, that they may not need government assistance. And so there's several forms of that nature. We have a form that's called an AD 1026, which is highly erodible. I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking to somebody.
Oh, okay. I thought you was waiting at me. A form AD 1026 that certifies the highly erodible wetland on the farms that they may be wanting to enroll into these programs. So it all starts with the local office. Okay.
One other thing that kind of jumps out at me, I realized that there was some guaranteed loans, for example.
Yes, sir.
So the question that some people may have is, how credit sensitive are these programs? Is it based on credit score? Is it based on the plan? Is it a combination of those things? What should a applicant be looking forward to in terms of that process?
Okay, so with a guaranteed loan, is that you mentioned specifically, that is a particular program to where we work with a bank. So a borrower would be working directly with the bank and meeting their that bank's particular requirements as it comes to credit. if that particular bank needs a little bit more assurance, then they would request the guarantee through us. So the credit score or a question like that would be up to the individual bank. However, with FSA direct loans, to where we make the loans directly to that producer, you come into an FSA office and make an application. We do not look at the credit score, but we do look at credit history. So if there's a lot of past due debt or a lot of debts that were not paid in the past, then that could negatively impact a person's eligibility, as they may not make the credit history portion of our requirements. But we do not look at the actual credit score. There are, if a person has not been paying their debt, but it's due to issues outside of the control, for example, medical bills, then those are some of the things that we can overlook. But those could impact if a person just doesn't pay their bills.
All right. Now, one other thing is there any certain number of acres or any size of a particular farming operation that's required to participate in these programs?
For the direct loans, there's not. We just need to show repayment. So if a person comes in and requests for a loan, we will have to do a what we call a cash flow, basically a projections to see what kind of operation and how much income that will generate versus the expense. And so the number of acres doesn't matter, but you may want to consider that if you are going, that's why we have the micro loans where it goes up to 50,000. That's for smaller acreage. And that's a really great program to help someone. But, and I'll use an exaggeration, but if a person's only going to farm 10 acres, it's going to be really hard to generate enough income to pay back a $300,000 combine, so that's going to affect their request if that's what they're wanting to do. So they need to be aware that it's not the size of the operation, it's the repayment for the request that you're wanting to make.
Okay, and one other thing that came to mind, the difference in an urban and a rural farm operation. How small can an urban operation be? I know that's within the city limits, typically speaking.
For as my understanding, it can be as small as long as it generates enough income to repay whatever that request would be. If you're doing a small backyard garden and selling the produce at your local farmer's market and generating enough income to make, to meet those requirements, there's not an actual, to my knowledge, an actual size requirement.
All right, I certainly appreciate that. I see Dr. King. I'm going to see if he has any questions in addition to those I've asked, or if I left anything out.
Attorney Bell, I appreciate that. We do have a number of participants, I think, that have their hand raised. I'm going to see if Mr. Tucker can recognize those individuals now. If you're muted, if you would unmute, please.
Only one, it's a direct message. I don't know who's it to.
Yeah, that's right. If you would state your name and actually the question that you had.
Yes. Can you hear me? It's Kevin Bundage.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm a beginning farmer / rancher, and I know you just gave a just the websites and everything. But what are some of the first things other than the farm number that I would need to be able to say, here, I want to do this farm, I want to do goats, and I want to do vegetables? What are some of the ways for a beginner farmer that I should go about getting a loan or grants or something like that?
Okay, so with the loan program, again, starting with your local office and getting an application, we do have eligibility requirements, and it's kind of hard for me to operation without sitting down with a application and kind of going over it. But in general terms, you would present your proposed operation on the loan application and the amount of money that you think that it's going to take to get that established. You know, if you mention the goats, for example, how much is it going to cost for breeding stock? Then how much is it going to cost to take care of those goats for a year? Things of that nature. And you would put your plan together on our forms. You would talk about your previous little bit of experience. If you've worked with a 4-H group, maybe whenever you're younger, maybe you were raised with some type of knowledge or background that has to do with ranching, and present that to your local FSA office for them to begin to review and look at the eligibility requirements for you particularly, and at your proposed operation. Some of the good sources to maybe gather information, if it's a brand new operation, you've never raised goats before, maybe the local university extension service can have some background information about that and how much it may cost, because the big portion is going to be making sure that we have enough income to repay the loan and enough money there to pay the feed bills, the vet bills, and take care of the livestock for the life of the operation. So resources with your local extension service, getting your application together and putting your application request with your proposed operation, and working with your local FSA office to make sure that they get all the information they need to make their eligibility requirements. And what we call feasibility. Basically, is your request proposed operation going to generate enough income to pay back the loan request?
Uploads from different chat. Uploads from different centers in the chat.
Dr. King,
Okay.
do we have another hand raised that had a question for Mr. Hoots?
What we want to do is see if FSA, if you could upload that information, an individual will have direct access to that particular presentation that Mr. Hoots made. If you could upload that, Mr. Hoots, we'd appreciate it. Mr. Hoots, I have a couple of questions. One for clarity.
Yes, sir.
One, you gave reference to the emergency loan, and on the emergency loan, what's the formula on that loan? You say showing you have a loss. And normally, in the case of an emergency disaster, people have had loss. Do you all still use the formula where, for if you do 3 years or 5 years, you substitute 2 years, 3-year plan with the county averages to establish what the yield that you would do your calculation from, say, to show up to 30% or more loss?
Okay. So for an emergency loan, we do, to meet the loss requirement, it has to be a 30% loss.
Right.
On one of the crops. So we have basically steps that we have to use to make that determination. The very first one is if the producer has crop insurance, then we have to use the APHs that's been established through crop insurance. And that is the yield that we use as our base that we have to determine the 30% loss off of. If the producer does not have crop insurance, then I believe it is and I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, but I believe it's a 5-year average of the actual yields, but it could be 3-year average. I'd have to go back, see if it changed. But it's an average of the actual yields, and we do not replace any years with a county average. It's going to be the actual production for that producer, and it'll be the average, and then that is used to determine their 30% loss. I apologize for not printing that out. Some things have changed, and I can't remember if it's 5 years or 3. I'd have to look it up. I'm sorry.
That's fine. If I'm mistaken, I think they calculated based on 3 years. I have a couple of other things. One, regarding the American Rescue Plan, of course, we know that's the one where we're dealing with the 120% debt relief, debt write-off. Now, based on, as I understand the particular law right now, the part that I've actually read, it does not require any steps on the part of the producer. But if a producer wants to make an application to receive a loan and file the Form 2047 and request that their debt be taken off and not used in processing that particular application, can individuals do that at this point? And the application is processed based on a re-entry to Farmer Services Agency as a borrower.
Okay, so the latest information that we've been given is that we, even though the law shows that debt will be written off, that we have to treat it as, we have to include it in our calculations at this moment. Until we get further guidance, we have to treat that loan, those loans are still active. To be written off in the future, or paid back in the future, then we would still include those as part of our calculation at this point. That's the latest information that I've been given, and whenever we, as that updates and that changes, you know, we will try to make sure everyone is aware of that moving forward, but that's the latest that we were given.
Okay, my next question is in reference to, so there are no collections now because of Corona, COVID-19, no collections, so there are no debt servicing actions taking place on the part of Farm Service Agency.
Okay, so whenever we say debt servicing, there's a couple of things with that. We still encourage producers to go ahead and make their payments timely. If they don't, then we are still required to send the servicing application, basically saying, you know, giving a person the opportunity to service their debt if they choose. However, we're not doing offset. Whenever you mention collections, what we're referring to is offsets from government payments or other. So, for example, FSA program side issues a CFAP 2 payment. The loans are not offsetting that debt. That's what we're referring to on the debt collections. We're not offsetting that debt. That money is going straight to the producers. And we're not doing foreclosure actions or anything. So those items have ceased, but the servicing part of the loan, if the producer brings in their payment, we're still taking the payments and processing the payments if they're unable to make their payment, and we can still service that debt as though it's going to be there.
So even in of course, in doing debt servicing for full service, you want all the options you have. And I guess what I'm really wanting to be clear on is if you can file the application for servicing and list all the debts, but under servicing, you cannot put in there, based on what the new law is, the debt write-off or debt write-down. You know, even under servicing and dealing with servicing, you can do debt restructuring and, of course, debt write-down, unless you're dealing with, you know, a debt settlement situation. But in this particular case, the fact that that law does exist, can you use the act itself in servicing?
Again, the latest information that we received is, or that I have, is that we would continue as though the debt is there. We would include that debt in our servicing calculations.
Okay, my final question on that, and this is back to the coronavirus as well. They also have what they have, and correct me if I'm wrong, they have the disaster assistance under the coronavirus relief side. Now, that particular program basically, I guess you would say, restructure or defers the debt for a period of time?
Okay, I'm sorry, you were cutting out.
Yeah.
Do you mind repeating?
Yeah, I was asking the question regarding the coronavirus disaster assistance program. And as I understood that particular one, it would allow individual farmers, one, it's been a disaster, so you can't get an emergency loan. It would allow them to defer those payments over a period of time. So say if they can't make the payments, they said make the payments consistent. Then they can't make the payments, can they apply for that program and get the payment deferral?
Okay, so yeah, I believe I understand you now. Yes, sir, I believe that may have ended though right after the first of the year. I've got that information here. A lot of these things change so often, and it's hard for me to know every program, and I apologize for that. I should be able to, you know, but we have probably 50 programs, and these change continuously. So the program that you were referring to is the disaster set aside, which we've had in the past. We've had disaster set aside. Now this one actually, and that was for emergencies that were, and so we still do, but COVID became part of that. Instead of a natural disaster, COVID has become a part of that. And okay, so I do not say where that ended, and so it's still available. Do, and we would set it aside or put it to the end of their repayment of their loan. So the last year of their loan, they would have 2 payments due.
So that's just a separate, it's a separate application process. So if they go into servicing, and of course I know this, you know, you get the paperwork, you submit your plan back in, the full business plan, so you can make the application when they put you into servicing for the disaster assistance set aside.
Yes, sir. And there's no, at any time that you realize that you are not going to be able to make that payment, that you can request to see, you know, about setting aside that payment, you know, setting aside the payment that you have coming due, and putting it on the end of your, again, that last year you would have the 2 payments. You would, yeah, and look at that eligibility from that to help the cash flow. It's there to help cash flow whenever someone, maybe are tight and can't make their payments, and make it, I think it's a statement that says that it's due to their coronavirus, unable to make my payments, and we can certainly look at doing that.
Okay, and I'll say that for two reasons. One, if you have a emergency situation, a disaster situation, you failed to pay out last year, then I mean all of that carryover debt, that if you're going back in for an operating loan for this season, then you could, and you are not qualifying for the emergency assistance disaster loan, then you could apply and request the disaster assistance set aside as a part of that application versus the emergency disaster loan.
Yes, sir. And for COVID reasons, even if it's a annual operating loan, which is not something that we would normally do, if it's an annual operating loan, we can look at extending those up to 12 months. So if a person has a carryover debt from last year, their payment is due now, and we're trying to service that payment now, and and it was a 1-year loan, we can extend it for the 12 months, but they're still maybe required, they can repay that debt at the end of the 12 months.
Right. Okay. That's all I have. Do we have any other hands up? Like, is that it?
Yes.
All right, just one very, very quick.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Dr. King, this is Angela Rowland. This is just a quick question that I have, and this is as it relates to the AD 2047 form. Here's my question. I filled one out December 2020, but as I look online at your form today, it has the demographic information that was not on that form in December. So has the form been adjusted or revised?
Yes, it has. And it was updated in January.
Okay, so we all would need to fill this form out again, pretty much. Is that correct?
So if you are unsure what the demographic for you is at your office, local FSA office, you can contact that office. Oftentimes, whenever a person completed their loan, they would document as part of the loan requirement what the race and ethnicity was at that time on that loan. If you feel that that's not correct, or that it wasn't done, or you just want to verify that we have the correct information, you can contact your local FSA office and get that information, or go ahead and complete the new AD 2047 that does include that certification of what that your race and ethnicity is. And the reason I'm saying that is if it's correct already in our system, then there's no need to go ahead and do that form. But if it's incorrect or hasn't ever been done before, then most definitely need to go ahead and get that updated.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question, man? Okay, again, quick summary. We want to thank Mr. Hoots for his participation on the agenda. He's done an outstanding job explaining the Farm Service Agency programs and what they deliver in our local community. The CCAF2, I want to urge everyone, those who are listening and participating in this particular event, the farmers, you need to get in and sign up for CCAF2. I know a lot of individuals said they had attempted to participate in CCAF2 the previous year, and mentioned for various reasons that they were not able to participate or get in. That does not stop you at this point in CCAP 2. So I'm urging you to get in and to sign up for CCAP 2, particularly our social disadvantaged African American farmers. They are the ones who participated less and have received less benefits out of CCAP 2. Very, very limited benefits out of the multi-million dollars that have gone out. African American participation, African American benefit from CCAP 2 has been very limited. So I want to urge you to go in and sign up for CCAP 2. We're going to move on at this point to the next person on the agenda. Mr. Jones mentioned that Mr. Pierre will not be participating on the agenda today. Attorney Valley, we have a Mr. Clyde Williams that will be substituting, filling in for Mr. Pierre. Is Mr. Williams, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, Mr. Williams, before you get started, I know Mr. Hoots has ended his presentation, and I know this is going to connect back to yours as well. The gentleman asked a question about getting started at the beginning farmer. He has, he want to produce goats and vegetables, and he gave reference back to farm number. I meant to ask Mr. Hoots about that, but Farm Service Agency, if you do not have a farm number, and this land may have been either idle or not being used for a period of time, you will not continue to be certified as a farm, you do need to make sure that you have a farm number. But Farm Service Agency would be the agency that you would go to get that farm number. And I apologize for missing that. I wanted to come back to that while Mr. Hoots is on. Mr. Williams, we're ready for you.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clyde Williams. I'm the acting assistant state conservation for programs here in Arkansas. And as was mentioned earlier, I'm filling in for Mr. Alvin Pierre this afternoon. I apologize, don't have a presentation, but hope to still give you lots of good information about what NRCS has to offer and what NRCS has offered. So I want to thank Mr. Hoots for his presentation. NRCS works very closely with FSA, and as Dr. King stated, they are the foundation for getting started with us. We will, in order to offer our assistance and to get in our systems and different things like that, participant would have to have a farm and track number. So that is very important to obtain those things. And we also work closely with FSA on other types of eligibility. So all of those different forms he referenced earlier, as far as the AD 1026 and the 902 and different things of that nature, we would, NRCS would need you to be eligible in all those departments before we could offer our assistance to you. So with that, I'll go into a couple of our conservation assistance programs. The first one I want to talk about is with both of our programs, actually, we address resource concerns. We have identified resource concerns, which include anything from addressing soil concerns, water concerns, plant concerns, as well as animal concerns, air concerns, all different things of that nature. So we address those concerns by implementing what we call conservation practices. And our conservation practices, they range from different things from vegetative, as far as planting some type of cover crop or other type of conservation cover to protect your soil. And also we offer structural practices for different things like irrigation to address water concerns. We have pipelines, irrigation pipelines. We have, we do land leveling and different things of that nature. And all of these practices we offer with EQIP, we offer both financial and technical assistance for those. So as far as the financial part is concerned, we have a group of national economists that that develop our cost list each year. What they do is they take the cost that it takes to implement a specific conservation practice, and they pay a certain percentage on what that national average is. So I'll continue with equip. Also, one of the more popular things in the Delta across the state, but specifically the Delta, as we address different resource concerns on vegetable operations or specialty crops, our seasonal high tunnels. We offer cost assistance, financial assistance rather, on those. Um, and that kind of sums up our equip. And if we need to go into more detail in the questions later on, we definitely can. Our other program is our Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP. CSP is what most might consider as an advanced version of addressing conservation or resource concerns. And in CSP, we have enhancements. And basically, we with CSP we go a step above addressing our resource concerns. So let's say, for instance, we'll go with cover crop. So with our normal basic equip practice with cover crop, you may plant one species to protect your soil throughout the non-planting season. Well, with the equip enhancement, you go above and beyond to really get into it and to address some specific soil health concerns or some compaction concerns. So with that, you would go from implementing that one or planting that one species, and you would do anywhere up to 5 different species of different plant. Equip, you address your basic resource concerns, and CSP is kind of a pat on the back for being a good farmer and push your head to do a little bit more and try to get to that advanced level of addressing our resource concerns. So that is a broad overview of our programs. And as Mr. Hoot said, NRCS, we work to service all counties here in Arkansas. And right alongside each FSA office, you will be able to find an NRCS office. And excuse me, I believe at this time we are taking appointments. Our signups for both programs are continuous. We fund on an annual basis, but you can always go into the office, or let me rephrase that, you can always contact the office and get an application in and get those things started for our next signups and signups to come and different things like that. I want to speak on some of our successes throughout navigating through this pandemic. It's been difficult because, as you know, we are a technical field-based agency. So a lot of our employees and a lot of my coworkers have had to transition into at some points not being able to come into the office, but we have still been able to effectively service all of our customers that have requested assistance and need assistance. Technology has really played a key part in that. We've been able to adopt some new technology that will allow us to receive and send different forms electronically to where our participants could sign when needed and different things like that. So and also internally we've had to make some adjustments. We're used to meeting quite frequently for our trainings. As you know, we are into a new farm bill. So with the new farm bill comes a lot of different changes and whatnot. And so we've had to adjust the way that we do our what used to be in-person trainings to make sure that everyone is on the same page with all of the new changes that we have coming. So we could be of the best assistance possible to our producers and landowners and everyone that we service. So uh, that's kind of a brief overview. Like I said, if needed, I definitely can provide all different types of fact sheets and different write-ups and things of that nature to the host of the meeting to distribute to everybody. So At this time, we can go right into questions if that's okay with our facilitators.
Really, we appreciate that. Attorney Valley, I'll start with you unless you want me to go first.
Well, I had my mic off. I had just a couple of questions for Mr. Williams. Certainly, we thank you for your participation and for standing in for Mr. Pierre. But
Somebody tried to talk while he talked.
treatment of the customer that comes in to see you, would that vary in Arkansas, Mississippi, or Tennessee, which would be the people that are in this listening audience? So would that be very similar? How might that be different?
It should be pretty similar across the board. With our programs, there are some differences in the practices that each state may have or may offer, and those differences really come within the different components on just the landscape and the way that things are done from a technical standpoint here in Arkansas. So across the board, the rules for the programs are the same.
All right. And then if I understood you correctly, there was two programs that you primarily focused on. One was called Equip and the other one's the CSP. And Equip was more basic and CSP was advanced, the pat on the back for the farmer that's doing a good job with the, I guess, soil conservation, preventing erosion and all those types of things.
Yeah, and it's a push to go above and beyond what you're already doing as well.
All right. Then what type of money is typically involved within NRCS programs?
With NRCS programs, it all varies and it depends on exactly what spent is willing to do. It varies from practices to the size of operation, different things of that nature. So with Equip, we do have payment limitations in place. And we rarely see it, but those contracts can go up to 450,000. But that would likely those will include a ton of irrigation work from what I've seen in the past with reservoirs and pumping plants and different things of that nature. And with CSP, the minimum payment on that program, a participant will not receive less than, no matter the size operation, they'll receive $1,500 minimum payment per year. And the maximum for an individual with that program maximum payment limitation is $200,000 across the farm bill. So 1 5-year contract, your absolute 200,000. And with the joint operation or entity, that cap would be 400,000.
All right, I got one other question, then I pass it on. That is in this program, is there a better time of the year to apply? Is there an early time or late time to apply, or do you just do it all year long?
You can apply all year long, but we do have sign up cutoffs for each fiscal year, and we usually do a media blast on those, and also post them on the website and different things like that. For instance, our Equip sign up, it was for fiscal year. Here back, that deadline for fiscal year 2021 was April 16th, I believe. So
right.
the signups for funding for this year have already passed, but the opportunities to turn in applications, that we take applications each and every day.
All right, and you mentioned fiscal year, and because we're in the state of Arkansas, we're broadcasting to Tennessee and Mississippi. Tell me specifically, are we talking about a state fiscal year or federal fiscal year? Because those are different.
It's our federal fiscal year. NRCS's fiscal year, same across the board and all states. It is
October.
Yes, it starts October 1st. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Dr. King, that'd be all the questions that I would have at this time. We got somebody with a hand up, or if you had some questions, I'd appreciate those at this time.
Mr. Wade, that was one other program I'd like to get some additional information on for the audience, and that's called the Conservation Easement Program. Could you give us a little information on that? I know that all of the easements that y'all deal with, those are permanent easements. So if one was interested in participating in that program, what are some of the details? One, say the minimum size farm, the minimum amount of land that can go into the program, one, and what's the average payment per acre if one has an interest in going into the conservation easement program?
So the for all those listening, the program that Dr. King is referencing is our Wetlands Reserve Easement Program. And that's actually ran out of our easements department, but the understanding is the way that the program works, or the easement works. It can be a permanent easement, or it can be a 30-year easement. The permanent easement is the more popular option from what I've seen. Minimum acres to go into the program. As a DC, the smallest operation, and like I said, this is from my specific experience, the smallest operation that I've seen go in is maybe 125, 150 acres. Not saying that we can't go smaller, but all of our programs are based on all of our programs are based off of ranking scores, and typically in most situations you have an opportunity to address more resource concerns, different things like that with the larger easements. But and I saw somebody in the chat, they said that the minimum that they've seen is 20, or the minimum is 20. Like I said, from my personal experience as district conservations, the smallest I've seen was the number that I've referenced, but that is in no shape or form the smallest that actually could go.
Okay, but I
can be sure to get
present an issue when you start to talk about the social disadvantage, particularly African American, population, and those who are landholders. You have some that are running the 100+ odd acres, but the issue around land ownership, and even during the time period, the maximum amount of land being distributed. And when they talked about 40 acres of the mule, that was 40 acres then. So some of the land holdings fall within that category as far as the African American community itself is concerned. So if you're looking at a minimum of 125 acres, that really locks out, even if the land qualified, meet all the other standards, that would actually lock out a lot of the African American landowners here in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee as well. The other, and I just want to touch on this, NRCS conservation programs are really getting a lot of attention now. From what I've been reading, one of the areas, as they talk about, is carbon credits, because of what's occurring and what's been going on from an environmental perspective. And a lot of the practices, as a matter of fact, we published in one of our news articles about conservation program practices that actually it contributes toward addressing issues around climate change. Do you see in the future, or the possibility in the future, that farmers will be able to benefit more from these practices that they engage in as it relates to climate change? Because not only are they dealing with the soil and water management practices and preservation from that perspective, and the importance of that, for a safe food supply as well. But that area, it seems to be on the rise now. Do you see that being any added benefits or policies for small farmers, and as well as just farmers in general, as it relates to conservation practices and climate change, and of course carbon credits being the other?
Yes, you brought up a great point, and that is one of the focuses is climate change and climate smart ag. And also, as you mentioned, there are quite a few of our conservation practices that do address those concerns and issues. And as far as our socially managed producers and farmers being able to access to be involved in our programs and to address those concerns with climate change, um, we offer the assistance across the board, and there are some of our rankings and some of our pools that are geared specifically toward our social disadvantage. So as you know, we had Strike Force for the past several years. So participants are actually able to sub accounts that we have to service our historically underserved participants.
Right, and that's on the, well, for instance, EQIP and some of the others, that's the 90% cost share versus you're participating in what will be the normal, I would say normal, other type of competitive programs with the social disadvantaged farmers.
Yes, our cost share incentives, as I mentioned with EQIP, there is a 60% general with the amount that they come up with. Our economists, as I spoke about earlier, that basic EQIP rule is 60%, but for our HU producers, it goes, it usually ranges above 75% for the practices, the actual estimated cost for those practices.
In getting the benefit of those services, EQIP particularly, we hear a lot of time, and I'm not going to talk as much about the history and what has occurred as far as the social disadvantaged population concerning getting services, USDA as a whole. But now the EQIP really is a pretty simple application. When we say sign up, we don't say sign up, you mean basically you fill out this pretty straightforward application, and you turn that application in, and you outline and you check which particular program you're signing up for. If it's the CSP program, Conservation Stewardship, EQIP, the Conservation Easement, and of course there are other areas that, depending upon what those areas and certain practices and approaches are, would allow you to get higher points. Am I correct on that?
Yes, with the application process is very simple, as you stated. You fill out all of our applications on a form called a CPA 1200, NRCA 1200, and you can actually access that form online as well. But yes, you would designate, you would fill out your basic information as far as your operating name, how you signed up next door with FSA, and you would go down the list and you would select which specific program that you're filling out for, or you would like to apply for.
This is the last point that I have to make, and I'd like to bring this to the attention of the audience, in particular when you're signing up for the end of the program. The issue around air property, Mr. Williams, I know we find that to be an issue in a lot of cases, and getting people to when we're signing them up in that whole application process. How do you all basically address that? Mr. Williams, still there?